Today we're going to go ahead and can some hamburger in my Presto digital electric canner. So let's go ahead and get this started. First we're going to go ahead and lightly fry up some hamburger. I've got some bison burger along with some beef hamburger right off of the ranch. So we're going to go ahead and fry that and add a little bit of onion to that, and we're going to fry it till there might be little traces of pink left in it because you don't want to overcook it. I've got my 8-pint jars in there. I filled it up to the 3-quart level with water, hot water from the sink. I put in my 2 tablespoons of vinegar, which seems to be helping quite a bit. I'm not getting stains on anything yet on my jars that I've done so far. Got the rack in the bottom, and I got the pint jars about 2/3 full of water. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take that weight off of there because we don't need that on there. Close everything down. I just plugged it in. It is blinking pressure canner. I really love this canner. It's blinking pressure can, so I will hit the proceed button, and it says 10. And this is where you dial in how much time you need to, or how long you need to pressure can what you are cooking. Okay, in my booklet that came with the canner, it says for beef, pork, for ground meats, beef, pork, lamb, veal, venison, hot pack. Doesn't say a cold pack, it only says for hot pack. Hot pack. Shape ground meat or sausage into patties or balls. Cook until lightly browned. Ground meat may also be cooked without shaping. Drain to remove excess fat. Pack hot meat loosely in hot jars, leaving 1-inch headspace. Add salt if desired. Cover meat with boiling water, broth, tomato juice, leaving 1-inch headspace. Remove air bubbles, clean jar rims, and put the lids and the rings on. And pints process for 75 minutes and quarts for 90. So we'll go ahead and turn this dial up to 75. Alright, it's at 75 and blinking. And we'll hit the next button to proceed to the next stage. And now it says insert jars. Jars are already inserted and ready to go. So I will hit the next button, and now it's on the warming cycle. It switches over right to warming. And what it's going to do now is sterilize the jars. So in about 15-20 minutes it will be ready. And by that time the hamburger will be all cooked up and ready to go in the jars. Alrighty, the hamburger is cooked, and I got the onion in it. You do not have to put the onion. It's your own choice how you want to cook it. You can just do plain hamburger with a little salt, and we also got right here some beef broth heating up, or some beef stock, and we're going to add that to top off the jars with liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop this hamburger out of here and put it in the bowl. I'll probably need 2 bowls. My jars are about done. So we'll go ahead and get this transferred over, and we'll jump to that next step. I've taken the hamburger out of there, and this is the juice that's left. And there's like pretty much no grease floating on that, but if you have greasy hamburger or hamburger with more grease, you don't want to put a lot of that in your jars, so you'd want to skim that off. But since this is mostly just the water and stuff that comes out of that hamburger, and there's very little grease with it, especially with bison meat, there is pretty much none. And then that hamburger from the ranch, it's like 97%, whatever. It's very low, 95%. So I'm going to go ahead and put my beef stock in there so I can add this to my jars. What's nice about canning hamburger is you can use it pretty much for anything, and it is so good just like this. And when you cook an onion in it, I think it adds a little bit of extra yumminess to it. I put quite a bit of onion in there. You don't need to put that much if you want to put onion, or like I said, go without the onion. And you can add some extra spices that you want, but this here is we're going to add a little bit of stock to it, so once you go to cook it and pull it out and heat it back up, you can, if you're like doing tacos or something like that where you want a dry hamburger, all you have to do is drain the juice off after you heat it all up. Just like if you're frying it up fresh. This way, your freezer's not full of hamburger, and you got long-term storage right here. Alright, let's go ahead and get this going. Got my handy-dandy picker-upper. Scoot on over here a little bit. It says fill jars because the beeper just went off, so we can go ahead, unlock this, open this top up. These jars are now sterilized. So what we'll go ahead and do, pull them out one at a time. And with this process here, if you're doing like meats and stuff with grease and stuff like that, you want to make sure you're trying to keep as much as you can off of the rim. You'll wipe it down right before you put the lid on it, of course. It's really handy to have one of these little funnels to help you do this without making such a big mess. So we'll go ahead and move this jar nice and close. Let's get me a... Alright. And just like pretty much everything else, you want to have it at least an inch from the top. And on these jars, an inch is usually around that first rim right there, or the bottom one. That there's about an inch, maybe a little bit below it. That's what you use for a measurement. We're going to put in half a teaspoon of salt. You don't have to put salt. It has nothing to do with the preserving or anything. It's just for flavor. So I'm going to add my half a teaspoon of salt. You can put a teaspoon if you like it a little saltier. Okay, you can see I'm right there, about an inch from the top. We'll go ahead and put in some of the broth now. Also keeping that an inch from the top. I do have one of those little plastic tools that you use to shove down in there to make sure that all the air bubbles have come up. But that is with my other canning supplies right now. So this one is right there, is about perfect. It's right below the circle, so it's about an inch down. What you want to do, make sure you got a wet paper towel. Wipe that rim off, just in case you got anything on there. You don't want anything to interfere with your lid. And I also got one of those little magnet rods that you stick in the water to pull out your hot lids. That's also with my other tool. So we're just going to have to use our fingers. Set that on there. And the main thing is, do not over tighten. Finger tight. Just like this. That's it. That's all you want it. You do not want to put heavy force on there. You don't want to twist your wrist into that. What you need is that rubber pushing against the glass, but not too hard, because when this gets heated up in the pressure canner, it needs that, the liquids are gonna swell up a little bit, and it needs to be able to evacuate some of that air. And if you over tighten it, it will not allow it to do that. And then when it starts cooling down and it tries to suck air back in there, what it does, that's when it sucks the lid down. But make sure you do not over tighten that. And then go ahead and set that. This jar is nice and hot because with the hot products in it. Now I'm going to go ahead and set that in my canner. And I will proceed to fill up the rest of them. Okay, we used 4 pounds of bison burger and 1 pound of beef burger, and we ended up with 7 pints. So I will go ahead and pull out this last jar. Set it to drain. And we'll move these around a little bit so they're not clanking against each other when the boiling starts, since it's not completely full. There we go. Now let's go ahead, put the lid on. Just snaps on just like that. Lock this down, your locking device, spin it. Now go on down to here. It still says fill jars. Now the jars are filled. So now we get to hit the next button. There we go. Now it is heating. And once it gets up to the right temperature, where the jars are heated and the water inside is at the right temperature, it will go ahead and start a 10-minute countdown. I went outside, got my little Predator generator out of my shed, fired that up, and I came back in and it was already starting the countdown. So it's on 7 minutes now. Once it gets a certain temperature, like I said, it starts that 10-minute countdown, and right now it's saying vent, which means then you can start hearing it gurgling out the top a little bit. Right there you can hear the gurgling, and it's also got a little bit coming out of the little safety right there. So when that timer's up, it's going to go ahead and tell me to put the weight on. We're at 1 minute and it's almost a steady stream of steam coming out the top. Alright, now it just switched over and it says right there, put regulator on. So we'll go ahead and snap the regulator on. Make sure it is aimed towards the canning side. There we go. Now you'll hear it starting out the release valve over there. Let's move a little closer. You hear it, the release valve right there. Pressure's building up on that. And then once it gets to a certain pressure, it's going to pop that up. And then the timer will start. I can go ahead and push the next button. The beeping stops, and now it still says can, and then it says the 75 minutes that I set it to. But that will not start until it gets up to pressure. And this will pop up just as soon as it gets to a certain point. On the bottom of that little device there is a rubber seal. And once it pops up, it'll block off the hole. And it's a safety device. If it gets too much pressure, those blow. Okay, you can hear it building up. Oh, there it goes. See that? Just popped right up right there. Okay. Now once it gets to pressure, the 75-minute timer will start. The 75 minutes is up of pressure canning, and it took about an hour and a half for the cool down, and then a 10-minute timer starts. When that 10-minute timer starts, that's the last of the cool down, and that's when the pressure release valve and stuff all drops down, and there should no longer be any pressure, And in 5 minutes, that will say, it's saying cool down, it's cool, and in 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, it'll beep, and it'll say, it's done. Okay. Now it says done. And what you do is just hold in the X button for 3 seconds. And it resets it. Ready for the next batch. Take the lid off nice and carefully so you don't get burnt. Make sure you lift it up, aiming away from you so the steam doesn't hit your arm. There it is right there. Looking good. Still boiling away. I'm going to put the lid back on that so I can hold that heat in there. So in a couple hours it'll still be nice and warm when I get on to the next batch. But as you can see, they're boiling away still. Alright, it's that easy to do hamburger. Some good meals to be had there. Alright y'all, thanks for watching. Bye.